A Raiders legend once said cap space wins championships, and right now, the Raiders might be sitting on a golden ticket. One of the most feared run-stoppers in football just demanded a trade, and his wish list has one team written all over it. Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll know exactly why this move could either save the Raiders' defense or blow up in their face. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a beat on the fastest moving Raiders news out there. Here's the situation. Vita, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' massive interior lineman, has officially asked his team to trade him. This isn't some random rumor floating around social media. This came straight from a trusted NFL insider. And once that news broke, another reporter dropped an even bigger detail. Vita reportedly wants to land in California, or with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now stop and think about that for a second. Why would a guy request a trade to specific teams? Because he's from the Bay Area, and he wants to go home. Let's talk about who Vita actually is, because some fans don't fully realize how good this guy is. He's not a flashy sack artist like some of the big-name pass rushers you hear about every Sunday. Vita's game is different. He's a true nose tackle, someone who clogs the middle of the field and makes life miserable for offensive linemen on every single snap. If you're ranking the best true nose tackles in football today, there are really only two names that belong at the top, and Vita is one of them. That alone tells you how valuable he could be to any defense that lands him. So why would Tampa Bay let a player like this walk? Simple. Money. The Buccaneers are in rough shape financially. They're actually operating with negative cap space right now, which is about as bad as it gets in the NFL. On top of that, their quarterback is heading into a new contract next off-season that's expected to cost tens of millions per year. When you add it all up, Tampa Bay simply doesn't have the flexibility to pay Vita what he wants. That's exactly why this holdout situation has been dragging on, and why a trade or even a release now feels almost unavoidable. But here's where it gets interesting for Raiders fans. Vita reportedly has his sights set on 4 teams total. 2 teams in Los Angeles, 1 team in the Bay Area, and the Raiders. And when you dig into the details, most of those other options don't actually make much sense. The team in the Bay Area already has a young defensive tackle they drafted last year who plays a very similar style, so bringing in Vita could actually slow down that player's development instead of helping the defense. One of the Los Angeles teams likely doesn't have the cap room or draft capital to make a deal work. And the other Los Angeles team is already committed to paying its franchise quarterback and several other core players major money in the next few years, meaning they'd struggle to fit Vita's price tag into their books too. That leaves the Raiders standing out as the most realistic destination. And here's a detail that makes this even juicier. The Raiders' current general manager was part of the front office that originally drafted Vita. That's not nothing. Familiarity and trust between a player and a decision-maker can absolutely influence where a guy wants to land. Now let's get real about whether this actually fills a need for Las Vegas. Look at the Raiders' defensive line right now. They added a rookie defensive lineman this year and also brought in another interior piece this offseason. But neither of those guys is a true, dominant force in the middle. If you're being honest about this roster, the nose tackle spot is arguably the last real hole left on that side of the ball. So here's a question for you. If a proven, disruptive defensive tackle wants to come play for your team, and your general manager already has a relationship with him, do you make the move? This wouldn't be the first time the Raiders went out and grabbed a dominant veteran defensive tackle either. Years ago, the franchise brought in a future Hall of Fame caliber defender who many thought was past his prime. That move ended up being one of the best defensive additions the team had made in years, even though the offense around him couldn't get out of its own way at the time. The lesson here is that adding real talent in the trenches can transform a defense almost overnight, and the timing for a move like this actually lines up well with where the Raiders are as a franchise. They have a young quarterback on a rookie contract right now, which means they have a limited window where they can spend real money on the rest of the roster before that quarterback's next big paycheck eats into the budget. Right now is exactly the moment to add difference makers up front. But don't get too excited yet, because the contract situation here is messy, and it's the real key to whether this trade actually happens. Some fans have compared this situation to another big defensive tackle trade earlier this year, where a star lineman was dealt for a very high draft pick. But that comparison doesn't really hold up. That other player is younger and, frankly, more productive right now. Vita, on the other hand, is likely only worth a mid-round draft pick in a trade, not a first-rounder. No team is giving up a premium pick for a player at this stage of his career, especially one who is currently seeking a big new contract. And that contract number matters a lot. Reports suggest Vita is looking for a deal in the range of $15 to $17 million per year. That's a steep price for a player who projects to handle a limited snap count going forward, likely somewhere in the 500 to 600 snap range per season rather than playing every single down. A reasonable front office would likely try to bring that number down closer to 10 or 11 million a year, while still guaranteeing him a solid multi-year deal to make the move worth his while. Here's your comment challenge for this video. If you're running the Raiders front office, what's the most you'd be willing to pay Vita per year to bring him home? Drop your number in the comments below, because I guarantee there's a wide range of opinions on this one. At the end of the day, this move only makes sense if the price is right. Giving up a valuable draft pick doesn't make sense here, and neither does breaking the bank on a player who's already on the back nine of his career. But if the Raiders can land him for a fair mid-round pick and a contract in that $10 to $11 million range, this is a no-brainer addition. He instantly becomes the best interior defender on the roster, he can still play a very high level of football for a few more years, and he solves the one obvious hole left on this defense. So here's the real question heading into the rest of this offseason. Will the Raiders actually pull the trigger, or will another team swoop in and get the deal done first? One thing is clear. If you're building a roster around a young quarterback on a rookie deal, spending smart money on proven talent right now is exactly how contending teams operate. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and if you want to stay ahead of every twist in this story, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update the moment it breaks.